Today's crap on Nvidia day, says AMD and me. Starlink wants to charge you for going global, and Meta wants to charge you just for using them. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news that I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast. I'm going to give you a little teaser of what we're going to really talk about towards the later part of this episode, and that is AMD talking about how Nvidia has some less than ideal ways of dealing with AI when it comes to their graphics cards and their future plans for RDNA 4. So this was an interview given with the Japanese outlet from AMD talking about their plans for their next generation of graphics cards. Nothing to indicate, oh, we're gonna beat the 4090 finally or the 4090 Ti or anything like that, but more focusing on the mindset behind how they're making graphics cards and saying the reason why Nvidia is actively trying to use AI technology, even for applications that can be done without using AI technology, is because Nvidia has installed a large-scale inference accelerator in the GPU. In order to make effective use of it, it seems that they're working on a theme that needs to mobilize many inference accelerators. That's their GPU strategy, which is great, but I don't think we should have the same strategy. We are focused on including the specs that users want and need to give them enjoyment in consumer GPUs. Otherwise, users are paying for features they never use. We believe that inference accelerators that should be implemented in gamers' GPUs should be used to make games more advanced and more fun, like the behavior of enemy characters and NPCs. So essentially, AMD coming after Nvidia, saying that they're like the crypto bros from last year in 2017, saying the only reason they're pumping this so hard is because they are financially heavily invested in it, and if it goes belly up, they're screwed. And talking about how they're forcing things that should use the blockchain or AI when we have methods and easier ways of dealing with those things that don't involve such technologies. And that is just shoehorned in there because they have it, which is going to become very apparent when we talk about stuff later on. But the line, otherwise users are paying for features they never use, I want to come back to that in just a little bit after we talk about what's going on with the RTX 4070. It's being found out that Gigabyte has published that there's going to be 3 different editions of the upcoming most anticipated GPU from Nvidia: the 10 gig version, the 12 gig version, and the 16 gig version of this GPU, with it likely supposed to be the 12 gig version is the one that we're going to get. The speculation is that Gigabyte accidentally published what were some considerations that Nvidia had behind the scenes. I would like to posit a conspiracy theory that they're going to do with the 4070 what they did with the 4080, that these are all the 4070 and they're vastly different in performance, but they don't care. They're going to sell them to you at a ridiculous price, still all call them the 4070 and make it so that you just have to deal with it. Just like we talked about in last week, how their 4080 laptop cards can beat the 4090 laptop cards, and it's just based on what wattage you're purchasing, not the actual performance of the GPU. Who cares if they call a whole bunch of stuff the same thing? Do you? Probably, but guess what? You're still gonna buy it. They have the dominant market share. AMD's only losing market share to Intel, not them. And I'm losing market share to Reece because he's gonna deal with the hottest tech deals right now.
Hey friends, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing you the hottest tech deals out on the internet. Today's a short and sweet episode. We've got the Samsung 980 Pro NVMe M.2 SSD. The 2TB version is currently going for $159.99, which is 58% off, and the 1TB version is going for only $99.99, which is 52% off. I'm loving this sort of price war that Samsung and Western Digital have at the moment. Great news for us. But the next deal is the Acer Predator Triton 300 SE. With its 14-inch 165Hz display, an Intel Core i7-12700H, Nvidia GeForce RTX 3060, 16 gigs of LPDDR5, and a 512 gig SSD for only $999.99, which is $600 off. But like always, you can find the links to these and more in the video description down below. But until next time, I'm gonna hand you off back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
I got a deal for Reece that he probably wants. Starlink is announcing that they want to bring $200 global roaming internet service to Starlink users, where you can potentially purchase a Starlink terminal and bring it to your country if it's not officially supported there yet, with SpaceX caveating the fact that this likely will lead to reduced service, potentially no services in a lot of different scenarios, especially if the satellites are not positioned in a way it could work. This could potentially help them to more effectively roll out what region needs to have Starlink next. $200 a month is very steep, but for people who might not otherwise be able to get internet this fast in the middle of nowhere, I've been thinking about doing a cannonball in South Africa, going from Johannesburg down to Cape Town, not a cannonball, but like the same idea. And the only way to pull that off is with Starlink. This could allow me to do it. Not gonna, but it could. Just like I'm not gonna pay any social media site to verify me as a user. At least that's what I think right now here in February 2023. Maybe I'll be indoctrinated further into it later on as these companies continue to pressure us. And if YouTube did it and said that's the only way that you can make money here, I would be doing it. But Meta coming out and saying that Facebook and Instagram are going to have a paid verification service, also blue checks that make it so that you're verified and that you're really you, even though this already exists. This is a new special one that's going to cost $12 a month on the web, $15 a month on mobile, so more expensive than Twitter Blue. It's going to be available in Australia and New Zealand, and it's going to be called Meta Verified because they want to verify that you're you on Meta. But here's the real, okay, you might scoff at this and say that this is not worth it for you or your family, but here, listen to this package that they're going to offer you. If you sign up for Meta Verified, you'll get exclusive stickers for stories and reels and 100 free stars per month, which is how you tip content creators on Facebook. That's a great deal, okay? You can't get a better deal than that. I just wonder how much of me being bothered by this is me being a curmudgeonly old social media person who just doesn't like change, and how much is them trying to gobble up the money of their consumers despite providing no extra benefit to it. And I always wonder how disconnected I am from the general person. When I talk to you guys here on Hot News, we're kind of in an echo chamber, right? Like a little bit of a tech bubble where we're a little bit more savvy than the general population. We kind of lose sight of what like the everyday person is willing to do. Like the iPhone, very popular. MacBooks, very popular. Not so much here with this audience or this channel, but like consoles, super popular. It's what most people play on. And I wonder, am I missing something here that gives Twitter and Meta the confidence to just charge their customers for nonsense like this? And I'm just not connected with the average person enough to know that this gets everybody else's jimmies rustling. So let me know down below in the comments, does this, like your non-tech family members and friends, are they signing up for Twitter Blue? Would they sign up for Meta Verified? I want to hear what the average person, the regular person, is going to be doing. Let me know down below in those comments. And now let's get back into the crapping on Nvidia segment. We had to bookend it, make sure it started with it and ends with it. So it's been confirmed that Nvidia is going to have a Jensen keynote on March 21st for their upcoming GTC conference. This is where they unveiled ray tracing 5 years ago with their RTX Volta architecture. They had that Star Wars demo with all of the flashing lights. It was absolutely beautiful. And then they tried to convince us as mass adopters that we needed to have ray tracing in our games. But one of the games that Nvidia got people to pay for features that they never get to use was Atomic Hearts. This first got shown off by Nvidia GeForce August 20th, 2018, with them showing off the ray tracing and everything that's beautiful about this game. And so much hype was put about this game by Nvidia. It was part of their major launch of the RTX 20 series, showing off just how great it could be. It was in combination with Battlefield 5 and Shadow of the Tomb Raider, games that you remember being ray tracing glorious masterpieces, don't you? Absolutely. There's no other reason to remember either of those games. And even up to a month ago, them showing how far the game has come along. Atomic Heart looking more beautiful every single time with ray tracing just looking absolutely on point. And every time Nvidia talks about RTX features, they talk about how it's coming to Atomic Heart. From the very beginning until now, they've been saying Atomic Heart is an RTX-enabled game. And you probably understand where I'm going with this. Just for one more piece of evidence, I talked about this game in a video called Ray Tracing is Just a Giant Gimmick back in 2018, where I was essentially discussing, yes, there's a few cool games that are going to be enabling this, but it's really not set up in its current state. Anyways, the whole point about this is that Atomic Heart is not launching with ray tracing at all. It doesn't have RTX features. It came out today. It doesn't have RTX on PC. It doesn't have an announcement of when ray tracing is coming to the video game, despite the fact that Nvidia has been trying to convince us that ray tracing is good for 4.5 years and has been using this game as a hallmark of how good and how futuristic this technology is going to be. It doesn't exist. Now, WCCF Tech has had several interviews with the developer about this game, and back in their last interview, it kind of indicated that ray tracing was not going to be available at consoles on launch, but the way they worded it made it seem like it was going to be supported on PC and not on consoles. However, it came out now that it's just not going to be available. Now, based on what I'm reading about this game, it's an alright game. The game is kind of embroiled in a little bit of controversy. It's been in development for a long time. It's the first game, I believe, by this studio, major game by this studio. But more hilarious than that, the reviewer guide provided by Nvidia for this game had a ray tracing ultra preset. The game just doesn't show it. And I think this goes back to what AMD was talking about, that Nvidia is trying to put features into cards and saying you need them, despite the fact that they're not actually super relevant at the moment. Obviously, there's a chicken and egg scenario. I talked about that in this video from September of 2018. The fact that you need hardware that supports ray tracing before you're going to get game developers to jump on board. But I do think that's happening more in the console side of things with AMD than it is with Nvidia, and them trying to push RTX and DLSS, making it so that you think you need the AI generation, when in reality, the only reason they're pushing AI generation is because they actually have an AI accelerator that they put in from the Volta architecture way back when, and then they are trying to sell that to you at a price premium. If you look at AMD's equivalent technology to DLSS, FSR, it's as good, if not better, in a lot of scenarios and doesn't use AI. Nvidia has been trying to convince us for years that RTX is the way of the future, and then when the future got here, it's not even there because it's too hard to develop into the game at launch, despite them having nearly 5 years of working with it. Now, I love ray tracing. I've been playing my games with RTX 4080s and 4090s, and I love turning the settings to max and looking at how beautiful it is. But I do think that this is just part of the conversation of Nvidia really trying to force something down people's throats, saying you need this, you need to pay the price premium. The people who paid $1,200 for the RTX 2080 Ti expecting to get to play ray tracing on atomic hearts doesn't even get to do that, and the game is now out for the RTX 40 series. It's sad. It's a little sad. Instead of developing a fledgling technology and saying, hey, we put ray tracing accelerators, these are going to be useful in the future, this is going to be great for games in the future, we're starting the development now, we're actually going to try to work with the industry to make this possible, they went out and they were like, this is it. If anybody else tries to sell you non-ray tracing, you kick them in the nards, okay? How much of your life do you not want to have ray trace? Everything just works, don't you know? And it doesn't just work. It takes a long time, a lot of development, and a lot of hardware and intention by game developers, hardware manufacturers to make this pull off in an effective way, and there's hubris here. I'd like to see a little less of that. And you're gonna see a little less of my hubris because this episode of Hot News is done. I'll be back here for more hot tech news tomorrow, my friends. Cheers.